Good evening and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me as always is my good friend and co-host, Jim Stamm. Jim, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay, man. It's just us today. Just the Bash Brothers. Let's do it.
Yeah, and you ought to be raring for a fight. I mean, you were just negotiating a car sale before this, so chances are you're probably ready to do some haggling today.
Man, I'll tell you, that is a tiring endeavor, but this actually won't be that bad compared to that. So,
well, the show is packed this week, bro. We'll start with how this last week went. And then we're going to jump into David Bednar from a bunch of angles, and finally, Call Your Shot is going to send us on a bit of a prospect journey, I think. So
nice.
Dude, I'm pumped. Even with a losing club, there are so many interesting things to discuss, always.
Definitely. Like, and this is just something. Did you happen to see that thing that I took a screenshot off of the Pirates post game where they were like, it's been the most 1 or 2 run games in the last 30 years in baseball for a month. Like, the Pirates were in like 16 1 or 2 run games in the month of June, which is the most since like the 1991 Cleveland Indians. Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible. It's incredible how many things we've never seen before have cropped up with a team that, in all sincerity, most people aren't paying any attention to right now, which, rightfully so in some cases. I get it. But
well, and the thing I was kind of going to lead into with that is it's been kind of miserable because they haven't been closing any of those games out, but at least they've been in the position to be in that position, if that makes sense. So
it does make sense.
It's not the progress you want, but at least you're having those conversations. Now it's got to be, can we get some of those turned into wins? So anyways, It's bad, but it's not all bad.
Yeah. I mean, all that adds up to rough week. And you could probably cut and paste that intro into a discussion from like 30 other shows we've done. This one was especially poor, if only because the Rays beat up, or they're beat up right now, and the Nationals are just awful. To go 1-5 in that stretch is just gross, no matter how it happened. And what takeaways did you have besides that whole super close game thing?
I will give them a little pass with Tampa still, just simply because Tampa does good with less a lot, and so that just seems to probably be business as usual for them sometimes. Also, at Tampa, they are pretty tough. They know the ballpark. They know how it plays.
They know when they hit a ball in the gap, no matter how fast that runner is, the gap is big enough that you're not going to cut them off, so they take that extra base. They know everything about that ballpark, and they're coached to do so.
Yeah, I mean, just if you look at things with them with leads in games there and just overall record, and that's still a tough place.
I always get screwed up with the Rays because, sometimes we talk about them with this mystique, like they're this juggernaut. They ain't won anything ever. So it's like, they're a well-run organization. I admire how they keep the wheels on by spending nothing year after year after year. But they've never won the whole thing, and we probably talk about them with more mystique than we do the Yankees.
Certainly here in this market, there's almost a reverence for them because
they're the king of the poor fools. That's what they're the top of the mountain.
They're what we aspire to be, sadly, and so that's that. The National Series, that was a little rougher to swallow, at least in that completely wild one where it was. Oh my God! What do you want to talk about? The fourth out, the 3 homers.
I mean, that was insane. That fourth out thing, and I mean, I immediately on Twitter was like, what was this? I got animated right away. I was irritated that the umpires didn't know what was going on. I was irritated how long the game was stopped. I couldn't understand how the hell a line drive double play wasn't ending with no run. And a bunch of people on Twitter start hammering me, of course, that it's the right call, that the run scored. It still doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I get it. But if it happened to my team, I'd be furious. Furious.
And then there was two runners that almost scored on top of one another at the plate. And this is just one of those wild games. Like my wife came down and saw that play, and she's like, "Oh, I've never seen that before." I'm like, "That's like the third least weird thing of this ball game." And but
that was like from Major League, man, when Willie Mays Hayes was like, he scored right after the other guy.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, the Pirates right now, especially with Bednar, and we'll get into that, is they've really been shorthanded in the bullpen. I think we've got some guys coming back there with Underwood and Peters that are going to help out there too. So those guys are needed. I think people tend to dismiss them. They're really needed during the middle of.
No, they really are, and I think we have seen, because of the injury, some other guys kind of stepping up a little bit. I think Chase DeYoung has really stepped up.
He has.
And he's done pretty well all year. But recently, they've been handing him some leverage because they really didn't have a choice. And Chris Stratton was painfully, problematic too. So Chase DeYoung has stepped up and filled that role quite nicely. And Gary De Los Santos, got the close yesterday. And
we shouldn't just gloss over that. That was a big moment for him.
It was good to see because for a long time he was up here. They didn't do anything with him. Mm-hmm. And recently, again, out of necessity, I think. Starting to get some more opportunity for the kid. Starting to look a little more comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's definitely got the stuff that'll play. So, I guess all of this stuff we should really because we're going to be talking a little bit more about roster moves as we go.
Right.
I think a lesson that you take out of all this is injuries lead to opportunity an awful lot more than they lead to pain when your team isn't that much to be happy about in the first place, right?
Sure.
So when a Kevin Newman gets hurt, initially you're like, oh, man, there goes our shortstop. We're kind of screwed. But you get to see the glut of players that have come up here just resulting from that one injury, really.
Well, yeah. I mean, look what's happened in our outfield just with, with guys getting hurt. And that started all the way back in spring training with Greg Allen and went to the Gambles of the world, and then Marisnik first. And I of course you don't want the injuries, but it's nice to see opportunities arise and then see what guys do with those chances.
I noticed something small and weird. That last year I was thinking if the Kanan Smith and Jigba injury had taken place last year. Mm-hmm. We probably would have seen Twitter flooded with cursed, right? Yeah. It happened this year. He had a decent start. People were kind of excited about what he was doing. He got injured pretty big right away. They're like, 60-day broken wrist. He's out. I didn't see people losing their minds. I didn't see cursed. And I don't think it's that people didn't care about Kanan Smith and Jigba. I think it was more, okay, well, we've got a bunch of other guys, and
it's funny, as you said, even when you first brought up his name right there, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about him, and we live and sleep the Pirates, and until you said that, I hadn't thought of him recently.
Well, if you think of him, and then you talk about that opportunity thing, Bly Madris hasn't gotten this shot, no matter how he's been hitting. If Kanan Smith and Jigba came up here, was still hitting and didn't get hurt.
Right.
That's how crazy this stuff is. If Greg Allen didn't get hurt in spring training, we probably don't see Jack Sawinski as early as we did.
Oh, I think that's a definite.
Yeah, so there's just so many things that had to happen in order to have this perfect storm of all these kids come up here. And it's pretty cool. So let's take a break, Jim. And when we come back, let's hit David Bednar hard.
Oh, let's do it. I can get that arm loosened up here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, I think we got to talk about our poll questions. That's right.
Plural.
Multiple questions, yeah. We've talked about our concerns regarding David Bednar's usage like countless times. So you took it upon yourself a couple weeks back to just ask a very simple question. Do you take issue with how David Bednar is being used? I mean, the results were pretty stark. No, 73%. Yes, 27%.
And it was just throw this in there. It was just when that started to kind of reach a point where people were talking about it. He had started being used a little differently. And
right.
So anyways, go ahead.
Right. And it had been a subject on the show a couple times where you and I were both, I don't know. Like,
yeah, we had Josh.
They're using him 2 innings. I don't know.
We had Josh Taylor on when we first started kind of discussing that. So, yeah.
Right. So, because we're evil, and both are secretly fascinated by how people think, we did it again. Same question.
That's right.
This time the results shifted. Yes is now 62.4% and no is 37.6%. First one, David looked like a horse who could plow the whole field. Second one, David looks human and on the cusp of an IL trip. Jim, I thought this might creep closer to 50-50 maybe, but this was a total reversal.
It was, man. Yeah, like, you know, I was just really curious because it was quite to me, like we talk about, just like, it's just a little experiment. Let's just throw it out there again and then see if in a couple weeks things had changed. And yeah, I mean, it almost flipped. And it was pretty stark one way that people were not worried about it. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, as soon as there was a little bit of issue and he wasn't being used, and then we didn't know why, and then we find out it's just back. But like then people are like, "Ooh, man, maybe that does matter." You know, like a little bit of buyer's remorse there. And you know what? That's fine. Like I don't want to rag on people too much about it because, like, hey, you get new information sometimes, and your perspective can change.
I also don't want to pretend that the same exact people that voted in the first one voted in the second one. We're just randomly pulling. Okay, like, listen, we understand it's not scientific here. It's just there's something to be said for it. And I did have a feeling that it would shift, like I said. I thought it would be a little more to 50-50. He's not on the IL yet, so I kind of thought some people would kind of stubbornly hold on to, no, it doesn't matter, or yes, I love it, or what, you know. It's just a little weird that it shifted that much. A complete flip, you know? And it raises some questions, though. What do you think of his usage now? I mean, I don't think that we're going to sit here and proclaim right or wrong one way or the other. But
no.
Did they do anything wrong here? I don't think so.
Probably not. I mean, and here's the thing. You couldn't prove it anyway. You know
Absolutely
what I mean? Like,
right.
I mean, like, there's no way to prove whether, I mean, you know, he might have, anything can happen at any point in time, and you don't know if it's cumulative or happenstance or whatever. So, you know, do I think they did anything egregious? No. Do I think it's just a reminder of how maybe you don't want to abuse these guys in these positions? Because once they're out for anything, you realize how much you do miss them and need them. Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Like what you just commented on kind of made me think about an interview that I heard on Bucs in the Basement with our buddy Craig. He had Matt Capps on. And I reached out to Craig afterwards to tell him what a great show it was and how timely it was for what we're recording. Because I'm really super happy I got to hear that.
Yeah.
Before this, Craig told me they recorded that last Thursday.
Oh wow! Okay.
So those comments from Matt Capps, which I guess we'll tell you about, even though I want you to go listen to it, even though I want you to go listen to it because it was a really great show. But
Yeah, because we're not going to cover everything that they talked about,
Right.
and there were some other cool things in there too. So I highly recommend you go listen to that podcast this week.
But before this IL thing, or even knowing that he was being held out, was broached, Matt Capps said he kind of did have an issue with it a little bit. Just from his experience, he said, I don't know how good that is. I shortened my career by having my arm thrown,
Well, it's really interesting when you hear a former major league pitcher who was a reliever, who was in certain high leverage situations. That should get your attention. No matter what he says, you want to hear it.
Yeah.
That he was, and by the way, I thought he did a really good job of being honest. It would be
not easy with his position,
Yeah, he was candid and forthcoming, and sometimes you could see how guys would kind of want to gloss over that because of, like you said, their position with the organization.
Right, and Bob Walk's good about that too. Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to the broadcast an awful lot, but when I do, and Bob Walk's on, the comments about the pitching staff are pretty in depth and on target, and he's he may sound optimistic sometimes, but he's pretty honest too.
And here's the thing about Capps too, like he's now been out of it enough, and I don't know how many years it's been since he's played, but like you can't just attribute his line of thinking to this new wave of, boy, you can't pitch anybody. Like he's got enough, I don't know, he's got enough distance in him that like I don't want people to dismiss it like, oh, you can't let anybody throw over X amount of pitches these days. And Matt Capps hasn't pitched in a while, so this is a line of thinking that goes back to before everyone really started getting carried away with pitch counts and the analytics and whatever. Matt Capps pitched in a little different era. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think it is too, and I also think Matt Capps was probably never seen as a, I guess, franchise cornerstone type bullpen piece. He was a good closer, but not for a real long time. And it was never so dominant that you felt like, he's like I don't want to bring up he who can't be named, but we had a certain lefty that was in that class too, right? So
yeah.
We should probably read a few comments because we really did get a lot of them, Jim. So
yeah,
let's make sure that we cover that, huh?
Sure.
Let's see. This is the team that used Elroy Face. It's tradition. This is from our buddy Baseball and Death. So, okay, I get the nostalgia part of that. And going back again, Scott Nelson, our friend, he says, I saw Teak pitch a number of multiple innings in relief outings. Bednar is not Teak.
No. Just in body type alone, we can say that that's pretty definitive. Yes.
I mean, nobody knows that.
Bednar has had sandwiches bigger than Kent Tekulve. Let's put it that way.
It's true. Here's one from our friend Elliot. I know I'll be hated for this, but I feel that a pro athlete that gets overworked because he pitches 1 or 2 innings every once in a while is awful. It's just like telling your boss you're only good for 5 of the 40-hour week without proper rest. I kind of disagree with that view, but hey, I want to show both sides of this thing because the vote shows that it was split, really, between the two of them, right?
Right, and let me say what the first comments you've started out with, and bringing it back to something Cap said. He was like, first of all, that was a different era, and guys pitched a lot longer and multiple innings, and were used to that. And what Cap said is, it's not that Bednar can't do it. It's just that you're not training for that. So, it's one of those things where David Bednar can go out and throw 40 or 50 pitches in an outing? Absolutely. Can he make it through it and probably do pretty well? Sure. He can be dominant. But it'd be like to bring it back a little bit to what Elliot is saying, is it'd be like training to do like a half marathon and then going out and just trying to run a full marathon. You know what I mean? And then expecting no issues from that whatsoever. It's like you're not built up for that yet.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like these guys are trained to compete, and closers too, man. They are emptying the tank when they go into games. Like it's not like starting pitching where you are trying to monitor and save some of your stuff to get you through 5 or 6 or 7 innings. Whereas now you bring in closers, man, you are emptying it. And when you're doing that up in the 40s and 50s, that could be different. So I get that part.
I thought this was an interesting take from this is probably you can't imagine this is his real name, Ronnie Polino.
It isn't. I've actually messed with him about that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not.
I definitely do. So he definitely does have a problem with it. Not so much from a Bednar workload standpoint, but I think it masks the underlying issue that the rest of the pen needs serious work. That's a pretty cool point. You know,
yeah.
Because they have avoided the need for a setup man, haven't they? You know, until recently, because they just kind of used Stratton when they absolutely had to, or when it was a game when they didn't think David could give them to, maybe.
Right.
So it has kind of masked a problem a little bit there. And what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they haven't had, I think, the right guy. It's funny. It's kind of like when you're building your batting lineup and you're trying to put guys in the right positions, you know, to fill certain roles. They just haven't had it. You know, I think you like Stratton maybe in like the 7th, and then you get to the 8th, and how do you bridge that to Bednar? You know,
Right.
And so they just haven't had it in the right guy to fit that. So it's, you know, been out of necessity more than anything. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the bullpen's got some work to do there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think there's going to be a little bit of bounce back from some of these guys too. So, for instance, I think Crow's better when he has the counterbalance of Dylan Peters. I think having those two to kind of play off of each other a little bit from the right and left side, they're kind of the same role type pitcher. I liked having that ability to bounce between them day after day. I think it kept them both fresh. I think in a way they were kind of competing with each other. And I kind of like just what that added to the depth of that whole bullpen. They could go short, long. It was really nice.
Yeah, really, really nice. A lot of options with them.
Yeah.
It gave other guys where you're not having to expose them as much. Very much a domino effect. And that's why I did say, mentioning about Peters and even Underwood, is these are guys that you won't hear a lot of fanfare about coming back, but they are absolutely needed. And we are getting into July and August in Major League Baseball in a bullpen that's already been used quite heavily.
Right. And it's the hitting season to it. You know, it's going to happen now. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find out very soon that the ball has changed. You know.
Oh.
Now that the Pirates hit more home runs this month than they have since 2007.
Yeah, I mean, look, if baseball will mess with the baseball. There's just no doubt about that.
Let's do one more comment that I'm going to pick one comment, but there were several of this genre.
Okay.
And I think that this conversation might have legs for us for a minute here, bud. Okay.
Okay. All right.
It's not completely the Bednar issue alone. This is Eddie. It's Shelton. He's not a particularly good manager. He lacks the feel for how to use a bullpen. We all know he's just a stopgap manager. Now, I'm not sure that we all know that. I think we all maybe suspect that, but we certainly don't really know what they're going to do with him yet. And I'm not 100% sure he's had enough horses to have a fair judgment. I guess my main question out of this is, okay, we're questioning the usage of one bullpen piece, and it's really how much do you use them, how much leverage is too much, things like that. When you're questioning his use of the entire bullpen, in all sincerity, Jim, I guess what I'm asking is, what looks right to you? because I think every night I can question the bullpen use for a lot of teams that have a bad bullpen. I have a hard time, like, when it's a good bullpen. Like, you never question Craig Counsell because he's got Suter to go to, and he used to have Peralta to go to, and he has Hader, and
Yeah. I mean, when you look down in the bullpen on that monitor,
how do you know that they're
at?
picking the right guys? Like even last night, all right. Or Beatty gives up a couple runs, and people are, Shelton doesn't know what he's doing. I'm looking at the bullpen. I know who's there. I know who's available. I don't know who you would have picked better. I don't know who you thought was going to be a better solution there. And that's what I'm asking. What does good bullpen usage look like? I don't think there's a definition for it.
No, and if you remember at the beginning of the year, Shelton was being praised for the bullpen usage and how
they were playing well.
They were playing well, and they were getting good results. So, boy, you can't out of one side of your mouth talk about how bad this guy sucks, and oh, by the way, so does this guy. He sucks too, and this guy sucks, and then turn around and just say Shelton can't manage a bullpen. Well, those are the guys that suck down there, that you just talked about being terrible. So I'll go back to what I've always said is managers look a heck of a lot better when they've got good players, and there hasn't been enough of that, and there's been some injuries.
Yeah, and I feel like when the bullpen's good, like it was early in the year, and then you see something like Chris Stratton's really struggling, and you're really stubborn and won't take him out of the 8th inning role, even though you have other options because everybody's doing well. That, to me, is poor bullpen usage. That's the kind of stuff that I look at and go, this manager's stubborn. He needs to understand that it's okay to move a role if a guy is showing you he needs moved. Does it with the lineup all the time, so do it with the bullpen.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think you could make that case with several things that he has done at times, whether it's De Los Santos not willing to try him a little earlier in some of these roles, exactly, which is related to the Stratton thing, I think.
Maybe they were working on something with him too, but if that's the case, why call him up?
Right. Unless there was something that they stumbled onto and then they decided to just, okay, well, we'll take our time with it. But otherwise, with Bednar, I'll go back to Bednar real quick, is the last thing I'll say about that is my biggest issue with using Bednar in the situations that he has been used in is not so much that I can't I see why they're doing it. I just don't understand why you're doing it this year with him in those situations. So that's the last part of it for me and that's more of an approach thing than totally mismanaging a bullpen, if that makes sense.
David Bednar is one man, and he is probably the single biggest argument that tanking is not actually taking place, and the single biggest argument that the manager potentially doesn't care about this guy.
Yeah.
That's really all that he is. He's super good, local guy.
Yeah.
I believe that he wants the ball.
Oh, there's not going to be a day where David Bednar is not going to say, yes, I want the ball. Yes, I'm ready. Yeah, yes, I can. He's just built that way, and I love that about guys. But sometimes you have to be able to protect guys from themselves, and he is one of those guys, I think, that
he might need that.
Yeah, he's never going to tell you no, because he's a bulldog, man. So
you had Sandy Alcantara the other night in Miami. He's the first pitcher to have 2 complete games this year, and I think I saw you tweet out holy crap, how this game has changed. I mean, we're almost in July.
Yeah.
And that's the first pitcher to have 2 complete games this year, and he had to fight for it.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked like he was going to punch Don Mattingly for coming.
Yeah.
out
Oh,
to
yeah.
get him.
There was a spirited discussion going on there.
And we're
for
talking
sure.
112 pitches. Folks, Bob Walk used to throw 112 pitches. I mean, like, these aren't finely tuned athletes that used to be able to do that. So, and I do realize the game has changed, but are we maybe just coddling all of them a little too much? It seems like the arm problems are still epidemic.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it is I don't think they've seen anything with the numbers that suggest that the arm problems aren't as prevalent as they've always been.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's one of those things, like bringing it back to what I said, right when we started this was, it's hard to prove, right? Bednar can go out his first day back and have an elbow issue, or it could happen in a year, or it could never happen, and you wouldn't know what to attribute it to.
Well, hey, thanks everybody for your participation in both polls. I think that kind of made for a pretty good conversation, and it was interesting the way that everything continued to evolve for people as the weeks went on, and we kind of saw more and more of what we've been noticing for half the season, really.
We might have to do something like that again for a different one, because it is kind of cool to go back and see.
Yeah, I kind of like it too. So when we come back, let's do more fan participation, huh? We'll come back and do Call Your Shot, huh?
Let's do it.
All right. All right, and we're back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And Jim, something else I wanted to bring up before we get to Call Your Shot tonight. I wanted to bring up about Matt Gorski. That was a pretty bad-looking injury. I didn't actually get to see video of it.
Yeah, me neither.
But, you know, it's never good to see a player get carted off, and it's never a good sign. But I was comforted a little bit to see a report from Corey Geiger and Chris Halecki that they saw him walking around the locker room after the game.
Okay, good.
With one crutch. So, I mean, maybe it's not, you know, as bad as I initially thought it was. You see somebody get carted off, you immediately just go, oh, ACL. Oh, yeah. Man, you know.
Well, and you know, the way I heard someone describe it was like he almost like fell forward, and I thought, oh my goodness, did he tear his Achilles or something like that? And then I was just, I mean, those are devastating injuries for anybody, let alone a guy who's a little bit older that can't afford those types of injuries. You've already got enough working against you, even though he's been fantastic.
Yeah, he already missed enough time from 2020 and just when he got drafted and everything. So definitely I'm happy to say that he was seen walking around. And I also saw somebody say that they believed it to be a quad injury.
Okay.
So you don't hear about that very often, do you?
No.
But anyways, good news if true. Hopefully he's okay. Yeah. He's on the 7-day IL now, so here's hoping, huh? I mean, that'd be good.
Maybe it was just worse than it looked, and he's going to pull the old Ben Roethlisberger, which is carted off the field, then runs back out and finishes out the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so let's hope, man. Because honestly, he's having a hell of a season.
Yeah.
Kid's got a real chance to make an impact on this team as soon as next year. And he can play a couple premium positions that we kind of need filled, too. First base, you know.
Right, and outfielder. As we talk about young guys and opportunities, it would have been very cool to see how the rest of the year would have played out for him. So I hope he gets a chance to do that. Yeah,
so hey, speaking of young guys and opportunities, I'm not going to lie, I've listened to Call Your Shot, so I know what it's going to be. But now it's your turn to listen to it. So, Andrew, Eddie, cue Call Your Shot.
Ahoy mates, it's been a while. Pirate Queen Banshee here at PNC Park to bleed in a bag for our fellow humans. Let's get right into my Call Your Shot. With how Sawinski, Cruz, and Madris are contributing to their team's performance, who do you think is going to be the next young buck brought up this season? And who do you think should be brought up? The pieces of the puzzle are coming together. We're almost seeing that entire picture. Who do you think is that next important piece? Let's go Bucks, and more importantly, donate blood.
All right, Jim, let's call your shot with our friend the Queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And donating blood down at PNC, that's really cool. Good to see. What do you think of her question there? Who do you think's the first one to come up? And is it going to be out of need, or is it going to be out of they're just killing it?
I think it's going to be out of they're just killing it.
Yeah.
Which is great to be able to say that. That sometimes you're just forced into giving someone an opportunity, and I don't think I'm going to be breaking any big story here when I say that Ji-won Bae. I mean, it's my goodness. At some point, you have to give this guy a chance. And oh, by the way, he really could help out, I think, in that lineup with the role he can fill. Which is, he's got some speed. He's really good contact hitter. Things that like maybe we can bump Key Bryan down a little bit to the 2-hole. Ji-won Bae up at the top. Like this guy, I mean, I'm just looking at his numbers, man, and we don't do
319 average.
Yeah.
496 slug, 879 OPS, 15 doubles, 3 triples, 7 home runs.
Yeah.
Bruh.
The guy, I know. And the big knock on him is the power, right? People get very, very caught up in that. But let me just throw this out there too. This is a guy that in 1,000 professional at bats only has 15 home runs. Well, guess what? 7 or 8 of those have come in the last, half of those have come in the last 250, 260 at bats.
Right. So he's definitely added power.
What we're seeing is
little
either
guy too. Guy. You'd never believe it.
Right. And you almost see him in like some of these players that are from
dude, I see a Korean Adam Frazier.
Yeah, like
I really do.
And the way they're taught to hit, sometimes they are really not trying to hit home runs. So they can be taught, or they can start to seek out more power if they want to. Ichiro could do that. Look, I know nobody get carried away here. I'm not saying that he's Ichiro. I'm just saying like those guys can concentrate more on it and have a little bit more production if they focus on that.
So one of the major concerns, because I agree with you, Ji-won Bae would be my go-to as well.
Yeah.
Just to get back to answering the question.
And at second base is where I'm ideally seeing that, obviously.
Yeah, second base, I think he can fill in center field very capably. Probably better than Jack, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think the big concern that I've seen is there's already so many left-handers up here. Do you bring another left-hander up? So let's take a look at his splits, huh? We don't usually make this a stats show, but
we really don't.
I think it's pretty important when you really are talking about something like this. Against left-handed pitching, 375 average with a 525 slug and a 944 OPS.
That's stupid good.
That's against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Against right-handed pitching, 292, 482, 848.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually better against lefties.
Everything you look at, Gary, with him is he's just a hitter. I'm looking at his career OPS for a guy that can't hit home runs. His career OPS in the minors is 807.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that he's doing it a lot of different ways. If he starts to add a little power, my goodness, he's got to be given a chance sooner or later, right?
I don't know how you don't. to be honest with you. And, we just talked about Yu Chang getting the DFA today and Marcano coming back. And I'm happy to see that. I think Marcano's earned the time up here. He's looked pretty good while he was up here.
Definitely.
He and Bay are pretty much going to compete. Marcano's a second baseman that can play in the outfield. Bay is a second baseman that can play in the outfield.
Right.
It's I don't know. How do you honestly sit here and say that Marcano is better? I mean, I guess you can say he's done it at the major league level a little bit, but man, I need to see Bay too. So,
well, I guess the only other thing you could throw in there is any of these guys that they would be willing to move back out, at the trade deadline for pieces. I don't know. Because it's like you said, it's crowded.
Right.
How do you find all these at-bats in the playing time?
We didn't even talk about Kevin Newman, and he's definitely coming back.
Yeah, Kevin Newman's coming back, which I honestly hope that he's more relegated to late defensive inning replacement and spot starting at short and second, and I hope that that's what they do, but I don't know that they will. I just don't know about that one, Gary.
He's a right-handed bat in a lineup that doesn't have any.
Yeah.
I expect him to play.
I'm trying to think of somebody else right now. I mean, we've talked about Burrows coming up at some point, maybe.
It's not Mason Martin right now. I'll tell you that.
It's not. Anybody else that sticks out to you that they could
Well, her question specifically asks for next. So I would say Bay, to me, is the next that I think has to get a shot. As far as close to that, for Burrows or Cody Bolton, I think there has to be a catastrophic injury to a starter. And even then, I think Yajure might get a shot first. So I think there's a little bit of a line there as far as when they get a chance. Relievers are kind of always going to get a chance, If they want to bring in somebody else, sure.
You can always bring a guy up as a reliever and just for a brief stint. It doesn't necessarily mean they're starting to want to get a look at him for anything long term.
The other one we don't mention a lot, and actually heard from him today on social media a little bit. Travis Swaggerty, sounds like his wife has gotten the medical help that she's been looking for. So congratulations to Peyton.
Yes, absolutely.
I hope she gets well. And I don't know this, but man, it made me think a little bit. I wonder if him getting sent down had anything to do with that at all, because he even thanked the teams, the organizations, the Indians and the Pirates for letting him spend time. I wonder if that had anything to do with it. And if so, how did nobody communicate that? Because they took a lot of heat for the way he was treated, So.
Well, I had it as one of my things I didn't like the most.
I'm just saying, if they did something good here, it would be smart if somebody would tell us that something good was done here, right?
Well, yeah, I remember when Ryan Switzer for the Steelers and his son, they had the medical emergencies that they had, and how much the Steelers and the Browns and they circled the wagons, and private jet to fly people where they needed to go. Those are good things, and you know what? It's nobody's real business.
Yeah.
But the family's own. But it's also nice to know that human beings are still in sports and sports organizations, and you'd like to hear about it.
Yeah. But he's hitting the ball really well too. So, if there was some type of an injury in the outfield, you could see him getting a call back up. But with Ben Gamel returning, I think that'll be their fourth outfielder right there. I don't see Brian Madris going down. I think they really like what they've seen from him. And
I hope they don't send Bly Madris down. What would be how would you break that to him? Bly, you've done everything we've asked you to do.
And
you've
more.
hit lefties, you've hit righties, you've pinch hit. We
batted you 3 for a week straight.
Right. Thanks for all that. Great job. Here's a bus ticket. No, I think
you've arguably outshined the guy that you came up with.
Right.
And don't get all ticked off, Cruz super fans. Come on now.
Yeah, the Crusaders are going to come for you, Gary.
I'm sure they will, because why wouldn't they? But I mean, great question.
We can actually do a podcast, and we don't even have to mention O'Neal Cruz as tantalizing as he is. We just got so much to talk about.
You know what, though? I'm going to mention him now, because what about that line drive home run? I swear to God, the second baseman had a shot at catching it. It was so low, and it just stayed on that plane and got out over a 12-foot wall. Crazy.
It was crazy. 19-degree launch angle. The StatCast looked stupid about how barely arcing that line was, you said. And I rewound it 4 times, because I'm like, off the bat, you typically know a home run when you see it, especially something that's murdered.
Yeah.
And every time I watched the ball off the bat, I did not think it was a home run. I did not feel home run when he did it. Because of the trajectory.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've got a lot of roster moves coming up. And Diego Castillo is a guy that has done nothing but strike out or hit home runs for about 2 weeks now. I think 7 of his last 8 hits are home runs or something like that.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's going to be difficult to send out. I feel like they have to send it out. It's going to be tough.
Well, it's funny with Diego Castillo, because when I watch him, I actually like what I see as a ball player. I think even what he's done in right field, they've asked him to play out there, and for the most part, he's done pretty darn well.
He's even gotten pretty good jumps on balls. The technique's off, but he looks
good.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been enough of an athlete to still make some plays. But then you look at his numbers offensively, and my goodness, they're pretty bad.
They're putrid, yeah.
Yeah,
the home runs are saving him right now.
That is, and his right-handedness, of course.
Of course.
So it's funny. Not many guys, typically when a guy is not playing well, I think it translates pretty well to when you're watching.
Yeah.
And then the stats don't surprise you. I'm always a little bit surprised at how bad his stats are, if that makes any sense.
Because you kind of feel like, he's taking decent at-bats. It doesn't seem like he's just all take and then taking 3 strikes in a row, or he's not fouling balls off. He seems to be working guys a little bit. He's taking a good at-bat, taking a good swing. Doesn't seem like he's constantly trying to pull. A lot of the things that you see with young players, can't put my finger on with Diego.
Right.
But to me, I don't think it's very controversial to say, I think he's the direct replacement for Kevin Newman. And I think in this case, I'm leaning towards it probably is okay to go down and get a little bit more work. See if you can fine-tune something just to have him maybe have a little bit better eye, maybe draw some walks. If he's going to keep swinging for the fences, okay, be a little more selective. Just see if you can find a way to get his average up into the 250s,
Yeah, and the other part of it is you've got a guy that now this is going to start being the grind of a season for a lot of these young guys, which is maybe something we should talk about sometime, is with some of these guys being asked to play as many games and as innings as they will be going down the stretch, and Diego would be one of them, is do you really want to let him struggle the rest of the year like this and just having some home runs?
Right.
I would say I am totally in agreement with the fact of let him go down and get his whole game back together a little bit.
I mean, to be fair, just watching him, it doesn't seem to be troubling him at all. He seems really happy to be here. He seems really happy where he's at. He is enjoying.
That's a good point.
He's enjoying the games. He's enjoying the moments. Even when he had to pitch, he enjoyed that part of it. So
it's a good point. He looks like none of that bothers him.
Yeah. So,
but maybe late August it would.
Ordinarily, I would say I don't want to flip flop him, but you have to try something to see if you can get a little bit more out of him. He could be a really nice bench piece for quite some time, but you have time yet to decide that. And he's had more than a cup of coffee. He's not even cracking 200. I get that the home runs are nice, but when you get that veteran right-handed bat back as bad as it's been, you take Kevin Newman back in a heartbeat and put Castillo in AAA, in my mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone is very critical of Newman, and trust me, there is no more critical person of Kevin Newman than me. But we're talking Diego Castillo has a 236 on-base percentage.
Right.
That's
you can't hide that.
No.
There's no place to hide that in the lineup with Michael, DH and no pitcher.
Michael Perez thinks that's not good. So, but hey, these are the things with young guys. There's a lot of ups and downs with them.
Right, and again, talking about somebody needing to go back down is not trying to pronounce them dead.
Not at all.
But for somebody like a Bly Madris, that's a little different conversation. He's 26 years old.
Uh-huh.
He better get a good look, because it might be the only look he gets.
Right. Yeah,
so
no.
You want to leave him up here for a good month and see how he does. And then you decide. If he's not good enough, okay.
Yeah. And let me just give a bump to like athletes and what mentally they have to do sometimes. Think of the stones on a guy like Bly Madris that knows at his age, in this opportunity, he better do something or that's it. If he comes up, falls flat on his face, doesn't do anything, that's probably it.
I'll tell you something I saw
deliver.
in Bly Madris. He's had a lot of nice hits. He's had a lot of nice home runs. And I've followed him for a long time. And I make no bones about the fact that I got a soft spot for him. I've followed him pretty closely. I've always liked the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I saw, when you're talking about getting your call up after you've waited that long, you finally get up here. He's putting up some thrilling numbers after that first game. He's super excited, right? The very next game he comes up, there's a runner at first base. He knows he has to move that runner over.
Okay.
He intentionally gets out. Hits the ball where he's supposed to, into the hole, right?
Uh-huh.
Intentionally gets out, pulls the second baseman all the way over, so he has no choice but to go to first base. Instead of maybe swinging at the 4 or 5 pitches that were outside corner that he could have popped over third base if he wanted to, or rolled over. That to me is maturity, because he didn't come up here hunting numbers as much as situational ball. He's playing it right. And I like that sort of thing. So I think you can be mature. You can be too mature in AAA. That happens too. People will rot on the vine down there.
Sure.
I think this is he may be perfectly ripe, and they may be really lucky that they didn't miss him. So let's see. But the next one that has to come up is definitely got to be G1 Bay, and that's all I got.
No, like it was a good question, but to me it's just obvious, and the more you start looking into Bay's numbers, is what you're just seeing is a guy that can play baseball, and he can hit and he can run. And my goodness, for a team that needs to manufacture runs a little bit more than most teams do, man, I'd love to just see him get in there and get some work at the top of the lineup. And even if it's just with Marcano and him kind of splitting duties, I'd be fine with that.
I mean, how do you platoon that? You got 2 lefties, right?
Right.
So, I mean, they're going to have to address it. But you're right when you talked about maybe they're going to have to deal somebody, because that may very well be how they have to handle it.
I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in the next month when it comes to, I really hope that they're looking to either ship people out or be willing to do it if they need to.
Yeah, I totally agree. The last thing I want to bring up to you, just because I feel like it's something that, I don't know, it's nagging at the back of my head a little bit. Is this the longest you've ever seen people on rehab assignments ever? It just feels like forever. And that, I mean, if anything, that ought to tell you something about the actual urgency they have to get some of these guys back in the lineup.
It seems like it's been all year for Yoshi, at least. You know, Jake, I think Marisnik, I think that was probably pretty legitimate, and it's a thumb, and that's got to get right. Yoshi, how much was that ever even a real thing? I don't know, probably a little bit, but my goodness, it does seem like that was 5 months ago.
It does, and I'll tell you what's funny is it feels like they've been auditioning lefties over there, right? We've seen Josh Van Meter trying to play first base, poorly. We're seeing Bly Madris still take balls there in practice. Played a few games there in AAA. Shelton said he's going to play some first base for them.
Yeah. Why can't they? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say is why can't we revisit the Gamble Chavis thing over there?
I think we probably will.
I hope so.
Not here yet either. So,
right. But you know, I think that could work, and I really think it speaks to both of their skill sets at the plate. So it's something that I would like to see them do. But like you said, he's not back yet. But I think Gamble's really close.
Yeah, either or. I mean, like, I don't care which one of them, Bly or Gamble, plays first base.
Right.
I think the point is, I think the team's basically trying to show themselves, hey, we don't really need Yoshi, right? And I hope that's the case because I kind of really am leaning towards you got to do the right thing here and not bring him back. So I don't see a way that he fits on this team. I don't see where he fits logically, room-wise. I don't know who goes for him. I can't find a way to make it make sense to me.
I think no, and what I would hope is that if anything, they DFA him, he clears.
They throw him in the minors.
Maybe he rakes and he absolutely forces them to call him back up and see one more time, and then that would be it.
Something like that would probably be ideal, but I'll end it there. You know me, man. You know I try to see things from both sides. I intentionally go out of my way to do that, even if I'm real sold on one side of the issue already.
Yeah.
I just can't do it with that. I cannot find a place where that makes sense to me. And when that happens, that's when you hear me make a pretty firm stand on something. And this is something I'm going to make a firm stand on. I don't see a place for Yoshi to play on this team.
Right. No,
unless Daniel Vogelback were to get hurt, then maybe you could use a guy that does nothing but DH. But that's it.
And even that at this point,
I'd rather use as a versatility spot. Yep.
Yeah, and getting guys that have shown some power to be able to use it, because he certainly wasn't doing that either.
Yeah. Hey, so that's what we got this week. I think it was a good talk, man.
Dude, that was a good one.
So
we've been on a roll.
How do people get a hold of you, brother?
Twitter all the time. It is _412 and at Jim Stamm 22. And man, I just really appreciate everybody's interactions about the Pirates and baseball, and just there's some really good discussion and accounts out there, and I appreciate that, because it wasn't always the case, but I think there has been more and more of that lately. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, I appreciate all the support too. The show's Twitter handle has, I think, just officially eclipsed 1,000, which is pretty sweet because we've only been really around on Twitter for I guess 8-9 months or something.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And the interaction on stuff is awesome. We put up a poll. We don't have to go around begging. We know we're going to get 100, 150 votes, and people are going to talk. And,
Sure.
That's always nice. You guys are making certain aspects of this job really easy. And we do have some chronic call your shotters, though. We do want to get some more participation from a more various group of you. So
definitely.
It's okay. We don't bite. Send us one. It's good. All you got to do is record it with your smartphone that you're constantly looking at anyway. I don't even care if you're walking downtown when you do it. Walking into the game, do it with your kid. I don't care. I just want to see some more call your shots. So keep those coming.
Definitely call your shots and the interaction we get on polls. And remember, too, we do the live chat on YouTube on Friday nights, and those are actually really fun. And we get some really good discussion in there. And don't be afraid to stop by and just pop in. I mean, I think some people have started to do that, and they've realized it's actually a pretty good little chat.
Yeah, even if the games are going on, we talk about the game too while we're sitting there. It's a lot of fun. So jump on there. It's always a good time. And make sure you follow our channel, the Pirates Fan Forum. Yes, we're still on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network, but we have our own channel, and we'd really like to make sure you're following it. It makes it a lot easier to make sure you're not missing an episode. It's not caught up in the stream of consciousness that is the ever-evolving and ever-changing DK Pittsburgh Sports lineup that just expands on for days and days. Ours will always be top if you're following our channel. So make sure you do that. After that, that's all I got. I think I'm going to turn it over to Ben and let him finish it up, huh? Ben, take it over, brother.
Yes, Jeff.